In this lesson, we're going to look at tile maps and tile sheets. What they effectively are faster ways of creating game levels. It's not something that I particularly prefer, but they are very popular, and the decision is completely up to you whether you use them or not. Okay. Now, I've created a scene already with a player node in it, so we won't have to duplicate the information we've had before. But first of all, before we can start using tile sheets and tile maps, we need a tile sheet from another source. Now, a great resource for many different resources in 2D and 3D assets is Kenny NL. Kenny NL really helped us out an awful lot when we was doing the skills test in the past. They really did help us a lot. They give us the free, complete, all-in-one bundle for education purposes, and we were very grateful for them to do that for us. Now, there is a really good tile sheet included in the abstract platformer. You can see a preview of it here. We're going to use that, but I'm not going to just show you the graphic and give you the graphic. I need to make certain that you understand that you should go and find this website and download the assets for yourself, because it's very important that you pay these a visit, and if you feel generous, you can donate to Kenny, because Kenny gives all these assets away completely free based on donation from the community. So the more people donate, the more they can produce, etc. But it's a really good pack. So what you can do is go to the Kenny NL website, the abstract platformer, download it, unzip it, and then what you need to do when we create our project, I've already created a project, I'll show you that now. Inside the assets folder of your project, it's got a tile sheet complete. You can keep that in your assets folder, and we're going to use that very soon. Okay, but Kenny NL, fantastic website, give it a try. Okay, going back to Godot, so you can see I'm going to start creating a new scene with a tile map. So you can see other node, I'll type tile, and you can see tile map layer, but we need the tile map layer. Okay, so you get the tile map and the tile map layer. We'll go for the tile map layer. Okay, so that gives us, now we're going to keep it as tile map layer. We're not going to change the name this time, because we need to make certain we can actually remember this, and we're going to keep that the way it is. So with the node selected, so you can see on the node it's tile map layer, you need to go to the inspector, and in the tile set you click onto empty, very similar to when we did the animation, new tile set, and then you got to click on the tile set again to get the options. Okay, now we know for a fact that the actual graphic from Kenny, the tile sheet, is 64 pixels by 64 pixels. Now this is very important, because you need to set up the actual dimensions of the graphics you want in here before you import the tile sheet itself, because we want to make certain we can use the automatic tiling, and it will automatically tile based on these figures here. We will also be creating collision shapes so that when the player lands on the graphic art that we're going to create, if you want, it will actually not allow the player to move through something, or it will actually allow the player to walk on somewhere and this type of thing. Okay, so we need to add an element. Now we're going to make certain that collision 1 and collision mask are both set on 1. That is quite a complex issue, which we'll cover in a much later video series, because layering and things, it can be quite complex. But just for now, we'll keep everything on collision layer 1 and layer mask 1. Okay, so then you'll notice at the bottom of the screen here there is Tileset and Tilemap. Tilemap is what we use for putting the tiles onto the play area. The Tileset is what we use for setting up the tile set in the first place. So it's very important you create the tilemap layer. You then go in to create a tile set, select the tile set, change the tile set size first of all, otherwise you're going to be in problems trying to sort out this a little later. Make certain the physics layer has been created, and then we select the tile set to set this up. Then we got a placeholder here. Now if we drag in the actual tile set that we downloaded from Kenny NL, this message will come up now, and because we've set this pixels up in the correct size, 64 by 64, and that's the way Kenny NL set this tile sheet up, we can simply press yes now. And what that will do, I'll just drag this up a little bit so you can see it a bit better. That will automatically segment out each of the sections here into 64 pixel by 64 pixel sections, and it's automatic for us. So rather than mess around with doing this, that and other, it really works really well. But the key issue here is making certain you got this set correctly. Now if you set up a 32 by 32 pixel the tile sheet, you would need to set that to be 32 by 32, but this particular case is 64 by 64. Okay, now with the setup selected, you'll notice that we have the texture here we just used. Now we can set up the margins of the tile sheet and the separation of the tiles themselves, but we're going to keep it the way it is for now. That depends how the person created the tile sheet in the first place, but we're going to keep things the way they are. Use texture, that's there. So that's the most important thing for now. So I'm going to save that scene before we go any further. In the scenes folder, don't forget, make sure you keep your project organized. Okay, now this is where we can start placing tiles on the tile sheet. But I'm going to, before I cover the 2D, top-down 2D type things, I'm going to cover what I consider is the most important thing, and that's the collision type shapes. Before we put objects on here, like grounds and platforms and this type of thing, we want to be able to set up these squares or tiles in such a way that we can collide with them and the player will land on them or not be able to walk through on this type of thing. So what we need to do, with all the settings set up, we need to go to select. Okay, now as soon as you select one of the tiles or a combination, now you can see there's a nice set here. So I'm going to left click and drag, so them three are selected. The next thing we need to look at is the physics property, because we're on a physics layer and we created the physics layer here before. So on the physics layer, we can now put collision shapes, very similar to what we did in the sprites and the players and things in the past. We can put collision shapes on these cells we've already selected. Okay, so you'll notice there's quite a few buttons here. The first one here is you can expand the editor itself, which we're not going to do because we've got plenty of room there. This one here is to add a polygon tool. Now the polygon tool is to set what type of shape you want the collision shape to be. We're going to just use rectangles or squares just for now with this button. If you wanted to actually edit any of the nodes, I'll show you in a minute, you can edit that way. If you wanted to delete part of the node from there, and we don't need to bother with that other things for now because that's just for the future. Okay, so I'm going to click onto the add polygon tool. Now you've got to be quite accurate because where I left click the mouse, a node will appear at the top there. Now that's where the first one is. You don't click and drag on this, you select the next one, left click, left click, left click, and to close this, now this is what causes a lot of confusion, you have to click on the original node first of all, then it turns red. Now you'll notice that this option here turns a blue type shape, showing that there is collision shapes on this. Okay, so now they've been set up, we now can go on the tile map. So on the tile map, we're going to drag the tiles from here into the tile sheet on the play area. So tile map, now you can see that's all gone, but if I click onto these here, okay, now we've got the actual tiles with collision shapes on them. What we need to do now is to put these into the play area. Now in the tile set, you can't put graphics onto the play area, you need the tile map. So you'll notice, because I'm going to highlight these three here, which we did earlier. Now as I move my cursor onto the play area, you'll notice them three shapes there can be transferred to the play area. And don't forget about the actual play area of your scene. So I'm going to put this around about there. Now if I wanted to change my mind and place it somewhere else, I can use my right mouse button to get rid of the tile, or I can simply left click once and that puts the tile on there. Now if you decided you want to use this particular shape many times, what we can do, we can save this as a pattern. So if we go on to patterns, click onto the selection and highlight these, and then drag them into the patterns window, we can use that in the future for future levels as well. So we got that platform type thing there, no problem at all. So that's what we can use the patterns. The terrains we're not going to cover in this video, that's a bit too complex for now, but you can see exactly what's happened. We've created a tile sheet and a tile map. We can then put the collision shapes on the tiles with the tile set, and then we can put the patterns that we create from these inside the patterns there. Then from the patterns window we can simply draw them on there. So if I click onto the paint tool again, with this selected, I can then bring the full shape back into there to draw more levels. So if I click to there again, that's already got the collision shapes on it as well. Okay. Now let's save this, save the scene. Now we've got an exclamation mark here. That's because the actual tile map itself has been moved. So if we go click onto the tile map, and then if you go to transform, you'll notice it's 19 and 22. We need to make sure that's 0, 0, because on root nodes Godot doesn't like that. So if we save that now, you'll notice that warning has disappeared now. It does not like the root node moving around at all. So if I test that by simply playing on it now, you'll notice the platforms or levels, what would you call them, appear there. Now we're going to test this by creating a level 1 scene. We're going to drag in the player and drag in the actual tile map layer and see if it works. So if I go to new scene, 2D scene, double click, level 1, and very similar to what we did in the past, we now drag the actual nodes onto there, and you'll notice that's a node 2D, so it's a root node. I'm then going to bring in the tile map layer. Okay, and you can see them platforms there that was there, they're already there again still. And then I'm going to drag in the player. Okay, now the player I've just simply created from the Godot icon in the file system. Now with the player, I'm going to move the player onto a roughly there, and then we can try testing this now. So we've got the tile map layer with the tiles on it, we've got the player, and let's see what happens when we run this. Okay, so you can see the player fell. Now I've put physics onto the player, so I'm going to jump over that from to there, and then if you don't quite get the jump right, off it goes. Now don't worry too much about that, but the most important thing, you can create levels now of your own using different types of parts from the tile map and the tile set, and it also adds another technique to your level creation skills. I'll see you in the next one.